When Sarah adopted Max, a lovable golden retriever, she felt an instant connection that warmed her heart. Living alone had its challenges, and she believed Max would bring joy into her life. On their first night together, she invited him to sleep in her room, but as darkness fell, she had no idea what surprises awaited her. But before we start our story, smash the like button. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. Max explored every nook and cranny of his new home, his tail wagging with excitement. Sarah watched him sniff around, amused by his curiosity. She set up a cozy dog bed beside her own, hoping he'd feel comfortable. Little did she know, Max had other plans that would soon unfold. As bedtime approached, Sarah noticed Max lingering near her bed rather than his own. He gazed up at her with pleading eyes and let out a soft whine. Unable to resist his charm, she patted the bed and invited him up. She thought it was just first-night nerves, but there was more to it. The house grew quiet as the duo settled in. Max curled up at the foot of the bed, and Sarah felt a sense of peace wash over her. The gentle sound of his breathing lulled her toward sleep. She smiled, thinking this was the start of a beautiful friendship, unaware of the night's looming events. Hours into the night, Sarah found herself tossing and turning. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Max, too, seemed uneasy, shifting positions and letting out occasional whimpers. She dismissed it as the adjustment period of having a new pet, not realizing something else was amiss. Around midnight, Max suddenly sat up, his ears perked and eyes fixated on the bedroom door. A low growl emanated from deep within him. Sarah awoke to his tense posture, her heart beginning to race. She strained her ears, trying to detect any unusual sounds that might explain his agitation. Despite Max's alertness, the house remained eerily silent. Sarah tried to soothe him, gently stroking his fur and whispering calming words. "It's okay, boy. There's nothing there," she assured him. Yet, Max's gaze never left the door, and his body remained rigid, as if sensing an unseen presence. Just as Sarah was about to drift back to sleep, she heard faint, creaking noises, resembling footsteps in the hallway. Her breath caught in her throat. She lived alone? Who or what could be moving around? Fear began to creep in, but she told herself it must be the house settling. Determined not to succumb to fear, Sarah decided to investigate. With Max by her side, she slowly opened the bedroom door. The hallway stretched out before them, dimly lit and seemingly empty. She flicked on the lights, scanning for any signs of intrusion. Nothing appeared out of the ordinary. As they retreated back to the bedroom, Sarah noticed a sudden drop in temperature. A cold draft brushed against her skin. She checked all the windows. They were securely closed. Puzzled, she wrapped a blanket around herself, questions swirling in her mind. Was there a logical explanation, or was something else at play? Back in bed, Max positioned himself closer to Sarah, his body still tense. His eyes darted around the room, following movements she couldn't see. It was as if he was guarding her from an invisible threat. Sleep seemed impossible now, with anxiety gripping her more tightly by the minute. Just as she began to relax, Sarah heard faint whispers echoing around the room. They were indistinct, almost as if carried by the wind. She bolted upright, her pulse quickening. "Is someone there?" she called out into the void. The whispers ceased, leaving an oppressive silence in their wake. The sensation of unseen eyes upon her intensified. Max's fur bristled as he stared intently at the empty corner near the closet. Sarah followed his gaze, but saw nothing. A shiver ran down her spine. Was her mind playing tricks? Or was there truly something or someone sharing the room with them? Out of nowhere, Sarah felt a light brush against her arm, as if someone had gently touched her. She gasped and turned on the bedside lamp, flooding the room with light. No one was there. Max barked loudly, breaking the silence. Panic began to set in as she tried to rationalize the experience. Why was all this happening on the very first night with Max? Sarah began to wonder if adopting him had somehow stirred up unforeseen issues. Determined not to let fear overtake her, she resolved to find answers. She decided that the next day she'd look into the history of her home. The following morning, with dark circles under her eyes, Sarah began her research. She visited the local library and combed through public records about her property. To her surprise, she discovered that the house had been vacant for several years before she moved in. Neighbors had whispered about strange happenings. An old newspaper article caught her attention. It detailed the mysterious disappearance of the previous owner, a reclusive man named Mr. Thompson. The circumstances were odd, with no clues left behind. Rumors had circulated about paranormal activities associated with the property, but nothing was ever confirmed. Feeling uneasy, Sarah decided to consult a local historian known for his knowledge of the town's secrets. She invited him over to discuss her finding. When he arrived, his grave expression told her that he knew more than he'd like to admit. What he shared with her was unsettling. The historian recounted tales of unexplained events linked to her house, objects moving on their own, eerie sounds, and sightings of shadowy figures. He mentioned that animals are often more sensitive to paranormal phenomena. Sarah's thoughts raced back to Max's behavior. Could he have been sensing something all along? Reflecting on Max's unease, Sarah began to piece together the puzzle. Perhaps his restlessness and protective stance were responses to an unseen presence. The idea sent chills down her spine, but it also motivated her to take action. She couldn't live in fear, and she certainly didn't want to put Max at risk. She confided in her best friend Lisa, who listened intently. "Maybe you should bring in someone who can assess the situation professionally," Lisa suggested. "Like a paranormal investigator?" Sarah asked skeptically. Though unsure, she realized she needed to explore every avenue to regain peace in her home. After some research, Sarah contacted a well-regarded paranormal expert named Michael. He agreed to conduct an investigation. When he arrived, Max watched him warily as he set up various equipment, EMF detectors, thermal cameras, and audio recorders. The atmosphere in the house grew tense, anticipation hanging thick in the air. Michael explained the process, assuring Sarah that he would do everything possible to identify any anomalies. They decided to focus on the bedroom, where most of the disturbances had occurred. As night fell, the house seemed to hold its breath. Sarah and Max stayed close, both feeling the weight of the unknown. They watched the monitors closely, every flicker drawing their attention. Hours passed with minimal activity, and Sarah began to relax. Just as she was about to dismiss the whole ordeal as overblown, alarms started beeping. The EMF detector spiked, and the temperature in the room dropped suddenly. Max started to growl softly, his eyes following something moving across the room. Michael pointed to the thermal camera screen, which showed a cold spot drifting near the closet, the same area Max had fixated on before. "There's definitely something here," Michael whispered. Sarah's heart pounded as she gripped the edge of her chair. Michael concluded that there was a presence in the house, possibly residual energy from past events. He suggested performing a cleansing ritual to dispel any negative forces. Though skeptical, Sarah agreed. She wanted her home back and was willing to try anything to restore peace. They gathered sage, candles, and ritual items. Michael guided her through the steps, highlighting the power of positive intention. Max seemed unusually calm, as if sensing the significance of what was to come. Sarah took a deep breath, hoping this would end the disturbances. Michael moved through the house, chanting and filling each room with sage smoke. Sarah followed closely, reciting affirmations. Max remained by their side, visibly more relaxed. Gradually, the heavy atmosphere lifted. After the ritual, they sat together in the living room. Sarah admitted she felt better, the house noticeably lighter. Max rested at her feet with a deep, contented sigh and unfamiliar calm settling over them. That night, Sarah prepared for bed with cautious optimism. Max joined her, snuggling close. For the first time in weeks, she slept soundly, undisturbed by sounds or just the steady rhythm of Max's breathing. In the days that followed, their lives returned to a comforting routine. The house regained its warmth, and the disturbances faded. Sarah began to believe the worst was behind them, but one evening, Max stood growling at the hallway again. Sarah's heart sank. Had the cleansing failed? The anxiety she thought she'd escaped came rushing back. Searching for answers, Sarah recalled that dogs can sometimes detect health issues. Though unsure, she scheduled a medical checkup, hoping to rule out any underlying problems. Tests revealed a minor heart irregularity as treatable but previously unnoticed. The doctor explained that some animals can detect such conditions before symptoms appear. Gratitude overwhelmed her. Max's behavior, once seen as fear, now seemed like a warning. She hugged him tightly, whispering thanks. He may have sensed the danger before she knew it existed. Determined to build on their connection, Sarah enrolled Max in training classes and spent more time with him. The disturbances ceased, reinforcing her belief that his actions had been protective, not fearful. Just as life felt normal, an elderly man appeared at her door. He introduced himself as a friend of the previous homeowner and handed her an old journal, claiming it belonged to the house. Intrigued, Sarah invited him in. The journal contained decades of reflections, drawings, and references to a hidden room in the house. Her curiosity deepened. Using the journal's clues, Sarah and Max found a concealed door behind a bookshelf. Inside was a small room filled with antiques, letters, and old photographs. Light spilled through a tiny window, illuminating the dust and memories within. One photo caught her attention, a man with a golden retriever almost identical to Max. The resemblance was uncanny. A chill crept in. Could it be coincidence or something more? Sarah reflected on the strange events, her connection with Max, the diagnosis, and now this hidden past. It all felt too purposeful to be random. Choosing not to question the mystery, she embraced it. She felt that she and Max were meant to find each other, their bond forged by forces unseen. She began redecorating, blending the home's history with her style. Laughter and warmth returned. Max thrived in the lively environment, basking in the renewed energy. Sarah looked to the future with hope. With Max by her side, she felt ready for whatever lay ahead. Their journey had strengthened her understanding of trust, intuition, and companionship. In the end, what began as unsettling events led to something extraordinary. Max became her guardian, her confidant, and a source of strength. Each night, as they lay together, she no longer felt fear, only deep gratitude for their journey.